trilogy. And if you go to his website, which is listed in the program, you can look at a bunch of his animation, which is really cool.
I think he's won some awards, too.
I think he is highly lauded. Please welcome to the stage, Scott Kravitz.
Last year I got a Breadmaker as a gift, and in case you haven't seen one of these things, it's a large metal box that sits on your counter, and inside is a bowl with a little paddle at the bottom, and what you do is you put all the ingredients in the bowl, and then you put the bowl in the box, and then you push start, and it does everything for you. It mixes all the ingredients, and it bakes it. It's like the Betty Crocker Easy Bake Oven for grown-ups. And it reminded me of when I was in film school, and I would read about one of the very first motion picture cameras, which was this box that had a lens and a crank on it. And it held about 30 seconds worth of film inside. And when they were done shooting the film, I'm losing the mic here. When they were done shooting, they would take off the lens and then pour in the chemicals, and then crank the crank and actually process the film inside the box. And then they would reattach the lens and then hook up a light to the back of it, turn the box into a projector. And so when they were looking for investors for this, they would invite them to the factory, and they'd meet them at the train station and film them getting off the train. And then they would give them a tour of the factory, and at the end take them to a screening room where they would project the film of the investors getting off the train that very morning. And most of these people had never seen motion pictures, let alone motion pictures of themselves, so you can imagine the reactions. That's kind of how I felt about the Breadmaker. Because until then, bacon was a complete mystery to me. I had always considered myself a pretty good cook, but I'd never really been able to deal with the discipline and precision of baking. And you can't really improvise with it, and the ingredients like yeast and flour aren't things that you really snack on, while you're but suddenly I'm a baking master, and I'm making all kinds of bread, and I'm making savory breads, and I'm making dessert breads, and I'm showing up at dinner parties with this stuff, and I'm giving it to friends, and I'm giving it to family, and I'm giving it to neighbors, and the neighbor who tried to sell me Mona V. And everyone's happy, and I'm loving it. And I should say, I'm not normally a very sunshiny person. My personal motto for years was, that which does not kill me didn't finish the job. But suddenly my outlook has really improved. And I was even getting a little cocky, like I'd walk through the Trader Joe's section, the bread section, and be like, so it was around this time that I was having a drink with a couple female friends of mine, and I told them about the Breadmaker. And without looking at each other, they both stopped me and said, "Okay, Scott, if you ever want to get a woman to sleep with you, you cannot tell this story." And I was kind of surprised, because I'd always been told that the fact that I can cook is an asset. So why not this? And they didn't really know. They couldn't really tell me. They were just adamant, do not bring this up on a date. And so I thought about it for a while, and I came up with a couple possible explanations for why they felt this way. And the first one is that, as far as I can tell, cooking is masculine, but baking is feminine. And I don't think I'm making up, because I was in this bookstore that specializes in books on food, and of all the books they had on baking, only 2 of them were by men, and both of those guys were these like tough-looking, angry punks, like they were just daring you to call them pussies. They definitely had something to prove, and I don't have that look. So another possible explanation goes back a few years to an experience I had with a friend, which is that if a guy talks about something like making bread at home, he can seem really domestic in an unattractive way. And what happened was that a friend of mine, when he turned 30, he announced that he was going to focus on his career, and he was going to stop drinking and stop going out all the time. And I totally supported him, even though it meant that I was going to get to see much less of him. And a few months into his new life, we meet up for lunch, and he tells me about what he's doing, and then all of a sudden he stops and smiles, and he's got something incredible to tell me. And he says, "I've discovered the most wonderful thing, Jell-O." And then he goes on to tell me how clean and perfect it is, and how he just loves the fact that he can mix up a big bowl of it in the morning, and when he comes home from work, it's all ready and waiting for him. That's how he put it, waiting for him. And there's nothing wrong with any of this, but in hearing it, I remember feeling like this talented, larger-than-life guy had suddenly become this little homebody, and it was like his career was going better, but his persona, the thing that made him so charismatic, was suddenly reduced to something like on the level of scrapbooking. I know it sounds mean, but I remember looking at him and wishing so strongly for him never to have told me. And so, but of course, there's a third possible explanation why my friends said I shouldn't mention on a date, and why I shouldn't be mentioning it in front of so many people. But is that the Breadmaker is a perfect example of one of those technologies that lets you think that you know how to do something when you really don't. Inevitably, somebody asked me for a recipe, and I just easily rattled off the ingredients, and then I stopped. And they're like, and then what? And I got kind of quiet. And then you push start. Because the fact is, I didn't know how to make bread. I mean, I didn't know baking times or oven temperature or how long you're supposed to let the dough rise. I was just a guy who knew how to push some buttons on a machine, and there's nothing attractive about that at all. Oh, and I forgot the stupidest part of the story is that at the time I wasn't even eating any of the bread, because a few weeks before I started trying out a new whole foods diet with a friend of mine, which meant, among other things, no wheat. So I couldn't eat the bread I was making. Seriously, I would just make the stuff and then get rid of it as quickly as possible. But I was getting all this new energy from the diet, and a lot of it I was spending staying up late and making more bread. And really, the only direct benefit I was getting from the Breadmaker was that when I came home, my house smelled like a bakery, and not the slow gas leak that I still have. So eventually, I had given the bread to just about everyone I knew, and I finally had to stop and ask myself what the hell I was doing. And that's when I realized that this whole bread-making adventure, which to be fair only lasted a couple months. I mean, I know it sounds like years, but the whole thing was just an elaborate procrastination device. I'm an animator, and in addition to working on movies, I make my own short films, and my last film took me 4 years to make, so I was understandably reluctant to start the next one. And I found this flyer I brought in. It's called 7 Things You Can Do to Stop Procrastinating, and it's only got 3, which and it says, when a pleasurable, distracting activity is substituted for working, procrastinators are unintentionally rewarding themselves for avoidance. And every time avoidance of working is rewarded with a pleasurable distraction, the tendency to procrastinate is reinforced. And that's essentially what I was doing. The insidious thing about the Breadmaker was that it gave me the impression I was being productive when I really wasn't, at least not in the way I wanted to be. So in the end, I gave the Breadmaker away, and I have to say it kind of felt like my breakup with my last girlfriend. There was no anger or resentment, and we both agreed that nobody was to blame. Maybe it was just bad timing, but we acknowledged that things weren't working out, and we parted ways as friends. Thanks.
We do our anniversary show every year in July, where we bring back 10 of the people throughout the year that we've enjoyed so much. So look for that on the horizon in July. And our final storyteller tonight is somebody that was recommended to us through a lot of different people.